Hello, I'm Danielle from Queen of Hearts Astrology, and I have a dear friend of mine, Lynda from Scallywag Astrology.
Hello.
And we are going to take a dive into the Aries Ingress, which is the chart for the year ahead for each country. What do you think about this chart, Lynda? We've had a bit of a look beforehand.
Yeah, it's really quite interesting. It's sets the tone for the whole year, but depending on what ascendant, whether it's fixed, cardinal, or mutable, it can be valid for like the whole year, 6 months, or only 3 months. It's really quite telling, I think.
Mm. Yeah, and this is an example of a cardinal rising. So we've got an Aries rising in this chart, which it sort of gives us an idea of kind of dynamic circumstances that could very well change in the next 3 months. And as you said, therefore we have to cast again another Ingress chart for Cancer season. So we'll be back doing that in 3 months. How nice of the universe to give us more work. Yeah, so these Ingress charts are really, really old. They're kind of from one of our oldest branches of astrology called Mundane Astrology.
Yeah.
And I think I was reading something in that book you directed me to. I think it was Anthony Lewis's annotation of a book from 1900 something, 1908. And it was saying that I think, yeah, it was Alexander the Great used astrology to actually beat or to succeed in the Persian War. Is that correct? Did you read that? It's something like Alexander the Great used astrology to defeat the Persian army or something. So it's been used
I
since
don't doubt it. Yeah, it's been a
before
little
Christ.
while since I read the book, but I just always remember Christopher Columbus. They were going to be attacked by the people who they were kind of staying with, invaded. They kind of outstayed their welcome, and he knew that an eclipse was coming up, and he was able to use that to his advantage to save him and his crew and to allow them to stay. So yeah, astrology knowledge is very handy sometimes.
Indeed, it's been so long. Like these examples are so long ago. I think that Alexander the Great was 323 BC or something from
Yeah,
memory.
it's a long time. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure.
It's so long ago. I could be wrong, but that's a really long time ago. So thousands of years, mundane astrology has been used, and it's a branch of its own. And it's actually not my. I'm just, my disclosure statement here is this is not my regular go-to type of astrology, but it's a system like any other that we can learn. And yeah, it's actually quite interesting. You still apply the same principles as you would reading a regular chart, and so yeah, I'm excited to give it a go with you today.
Yeah, no, it's we me and Donna and Maureen, a lady from Cardinal Astrology, and me and Maureen from Astrobabble. We did an Aries Ingress last year. It was a lot of fun.
I think it's always better to do it with someone else because it's sort of be talking about, socio-political affairs and things can get a bit dry if you're on your own. I actually recorded
Oh,
one myself.
yeah.
I think it was last year and it was just felt a little bit too dry. So I'm glad to be doing this with you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Aha. Well, shall we have a look? Have a look at this chart.
Yeah.
The grand unveiling. I've actually got after our recent technological issues, I've got to open my software a different way. So just bear with me.
Yeah, we're on the 18th of March here in Australia, and we've got Neptune with Mercury, so it's lots of issues.
Some foggy technology problems going on here. I think we've done well considering. Let's get this chart.
And the Aries Ingress is when the sun moves into the sign of Aries, and it's like the start of the astrological year. This is when we've got equal amounts of day and light.
Yeah, it marks the beginning of what the astronomers call the vernal equinox, which is, it's really exciting. It's like that first little sprig of spring. Of course, there's a northern hemisphere bias. So for us guys in the south, we just go along with the vibe.
Like you. I do like the first sprigs of autumn here.
Yes.
It's not too hot.
It is beautiful autumn. So here's our chart. Yeah, we've got this. This is cast for Canberra. So often we use the capital city. You can cast them for individual states, and we actually had a look, but all that will change is the degree on the ascendant, and it will vary based on location of latitude, longitude. So in this case, we have Canberra, and we have it on the 21st of March at 8:24 a.m.
Yeah, nice and early.
Yeah, it's a fresh energy kind of chart, isn't it? Like that Aries energy is quite boisterous and fresh,
Yeah.
if not somewhat immature and maybe a little bit too quick. It's got that energy for the year
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got Jupiter right on the ascendant at 16 degrees. The ascendant's 15 degrees, so only 1 degree away. That Jupiter's enthusiastic and, optimistic, maybe a little bit too over optimistic at times, but
Yeah.
interesting.
Feels like a bit gung-ho with that Aries rising in, because Jupiter's in Aries. It's ruled by the planet Mars, so it sort of has that feeling of like, yeah, just really maybe moving toward things before they're fully developed. And I guess that might be, if there's a fair bit of energy here that wants to move after so long of being in lockdowns and having
Oh,
oppression and things.
yeah, totally. And I mean, we've got Pluto, and this will apply for all the charts because it's the same chart for every country. It's just depending on, the time and the latitude and that, it will be different ascendants, which means different planets in different houses, which have different meanings for the country in mundane astrology. But we've got Pluto ready to dip into Aquarius, on the 23rd, I think. So 2 days afterwards.
It's ready to pop, isn't it? And that's a 15-year cycle in Capricorn done, ready to start a whole fresh new cycle. So yeah, that's definitely a very strong, rather oppressive influence in the 10th house of this chart, weighing down. And I mean, I think we could explain that like the first house in these mundane charts relates to the country as a whole, and a general overview of the health and well-being of the country, and the people in it.
Yeah.
So it's got positive sides to that, because we've got both benefics in there. We've got Venus and Jupiter both in the first house. So at least on the surface, like things look good.
Yeah, I see that Jupiter and Aries, and I'm just thinking, she'll be right, mate.
Right. Yeah, it's got that optimistic feel, like, yeah, we're right. And Venus is in her own sign with the North Node. It's kind of got that maybe even slightly inflated energy around, like, yeah, we're going to have a good time. We're sick of having a tough time. We're sick of rules and restrictions. Let's live a little. It's got like almost a hedonistic feel.
Yeah, I could totally see that. Yeah. Jupiter does like to expand and it can overdo. It's in Aries, which is brash and pushy at times. I can say that I'm an Aries sun, so
You got permission from the Aries Club to say that, I think.
I find that Venus North Node really interesting because that's in all the charts. Because, as I said before, I just kind of want to stress this is for every chart for all the countries. Venus, I see that, yes, it's relationships and all that sort of thing, but it's also women. And that North Node tends to increase. So I'm just wondering, on a worldwide kind of basis, what we're going to see with women in general.
Yeah, what kind of, it's sort of that North Node almost indicates, growth or
Elevation,
something high up. It could indicate an increase in birth rates, perhaps, but I mean, I guess we'd also expect correlation with the fifth house ruler, which is the sun, and that's not saying that it's in the 12th house. But maybe just as a general significator for women, it could still mean that.
Yeah, interesting.
The thing that I was captured kind of, I was looking at the second house, because the second house tends to relate to resources, money in the pocket of the country. And the ruler is Venus in Taurus, which is very strong with the North Node. And I thought, so on the surface, like, there's the resources look good. And we've got, but because of the North Node, does that indicate inflation? I checked the inflation rate was 12%. It's really high. And then we see Uranus in the second house of the resources giving us more info.
Yeah.
And that planet's about instability. So it's like,
Yeah.
the one final thing I was thinking is the rulership of the seventh house being Venus, so the same planet ruling foreign relations and money.
Yeah.
My prediction is that our resources are just as a result of our of us being in the pockets of all these allies. You know, it's not our money; it's kind of connected to all these other countries that we're in bed with.
I agree. I think, yeah, I saw that Venus is ruling the second and the seventh. And yeah, it looks like, trade agreements, allies that we're, doing deals with.
Absolutely. And that looks strong, doesn't it? Like it looks like we'll do some strong
Yeah,
deals with these countries.
and like, yeah, Uranus is instability, but maybe there's some sort of resource or something like that that's kind of we haven't used before. Maybe like suddenly
Mm.
we have this resource that we can sell and that people want. Maybe this is an unexpected source of income or an unexpected area of demand that we get.
That's a really, really good idea and really good thought there because, you know, maybe it's some type of energy source like electricity, or there's some kind of maybe online data way we're making money, like through that Uranian energy, like there's some Uranian source of resource coming to us.
Yeah.
That's interesting, Lynda.
Yeah, well, that would be much more preferable than just, instability with the finances, which frankly, that seems how it is at the moment. I mean, we've got all that, you know, everything's going up at the supermarket, interest rates going up for homeowners. There's a lot of
Mhm.
people very in flux with that, worried about how high that's going to go. I'm just looking at the fourth house, which I imagine is probably, well, that's real estate matters. I'm just wondering what interest rates would be. I suppose that's eighth house. So there's Mars in the third.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think there's some. I was reading the 10th house as well can be connected to national credit
Mhm.
and national trade. So there could be there's some crossovers with the significations here, but I sort of the 10th house ruler is not strong either. I mean, it's in a good house, it's in the 11th house, but it's just lost dignity. It's just come out of
Yeah.
Aquarius. So that doesn't indicate it, like that indicates that the powers that be are kind of fallen into disrepute somewhat. You know, they're no
Mm.
longer, the king's
Well,
lost his crown.
yeah, yeah. They're no longer as in control. They don't have as much power as they used to. And they had
Mm,
it for a long time because it was Capricorn and Aquarius, those two signs close together, both ruled by Saturn. So,
yes, yes. It's it's interesting that I can't help but see the ascendant ruler Mars in the third house in
mhm.
Gemini. And I just think, okay, this country is going to be putting a lot more of its energy and focus into building roads, infrastructure, railways, and also, you know, online data, cyber, and telecommunication stuff because it's all connected to third house and Gemini. And but I think that there's a real risk of propaganda. We have a real risk of false information, misleading, being misled by the country because the ruling planet of that signifies the country is the malefic contrary to the sect in the chart, and
Yeah,
that's a red flag.
yeah. So
We've got to keep our eyes on, don't we? Just got to watch.
we really do that. Mars in the third. It is in a talky sign. Like you said, propaganda is something that could quite possibly be an issue we need to watch for. There was something else I was thinking when you were talking, and it's it's gone, but it'll come back.
Yeah, it'll come
Um,
back.
See that
Mm.
that moon, which represents the people as well. It's in the 11th. It's like it's a nice house, but technically it's really in the 12th. And that's kind of makes me wonder, like, there's a lot of people that kind of doing a lot of paddling to keep their head above water. It's like a duck, this mad paddling underneath, but
Uh-huh.
on the surface it all looks calm. So maybe that's going to be what a lot of people are going to be doing, just keeping that head above water, trying to stop from slipping into that 12th house, which is the house of our undoing. In mundane. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for. I think it's hidden matters, it's
Mhm.
enemies.
Yeah. It's social welfare system, which I thought was really a bit confronting, with the rising interest rates.
mm,
And because, we said it's in the 12th, the reason is we allow 5-degree orbs. So
mhm.
effectively that moon is in the 12th, like it's in there already. And we've got a hell of a lot of stuff in the 12th. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things out of view that are being hidden from us, and the lack of awareness, I think, of what's really going on by the majority of people in the world or in the country.
Yeah, and I mean that moon's in Pisces, so it's a mutable sign. It kind of, yes, it can adapt and that, but there's no stability like you would get with a fixed sign. Doesn't have as much, doesn't have that initiatory kind of propelling yourself forward of a cardinal sign. It's good. I like mutable signs. There is that adaptability, but it's kind of makes me think of like the two of coins, in a tarot deck. You're
Mm.
constantly juggling something. Interesting too. I remember what I was going to say about Mars. That Mars, you were talking about infrastructure and building roads and all this and that. It's interesting because you keep hearing that there's places like restaurants and different places where they cannot keep staff, they cannot get staff. And yet to do that, like a big infrastructure thing, like, during depressions and that, they quite often do big building things because yes, they need to be done, roads and all that sort of stuff, but it's also a good way to kind of get people in employment. It's
Mm.
yeah, so mm,
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Eh, I mean, it's interesting what you said about the fish. Sorry, the duck paddling like that. So a good example for Piscean energy, but that duck is paddling toward
Neptune.
the conjunction of Neptune and then the
Mm,
square of Mars. Like it's
yeah.
that's a lot of confusion and frustration that the people are kind of heading toward as a general overview. I mean, obviously certain people are exempt that are more alert and aware of what's going on, but I think as a general sense, it's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit concerning.
Well, it's interesting too that that moon is ruled by Jupiter and that Jupiter is so close to the ascendant. Yeah, it's just,
It sort of indicates that the country as a whole is holding the string on the people like the puppets, because that Jupiter is right on the ascendant, indicating the country as a whole. And
mm,
Jupiter's ruling the ninth house and the 12th house of self-undoing and
mm,
mistakes and errors and secrets. So I think that there is stuff that, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but there is stuff that the country is not telling the people, and I did see something actually in the media about, it was a TGA. The TGA had been called out for not openly announcing about some deaths connected to the vaccine of,
oh,
of
interesting.
a few children, yeah, that actually had died, and there's been an inquiry and things like that. Like certain things have been not released. And I mean, if you look at Jupiter as well, Jupiter does connect to health. It connects to health, and it connects to families. As a
Mhm.
general significator. So that ruling the 12th house could indicate that there are some secrets around that type of thing. And even the 6th house, which is about illness and connected to poverty, we see that the ruler of that is also in the 12th house. So, like, whether we're getting the full story or I'm not
Yeah.
so sure.
And I mean, Mercury, the ruler of the sixth house of illness and, the health of the country, it's combust the sun.
Mm,
It's
mm,
really burnt up. It's in a really bad position. It's not good. And then it's conjunct the part of fortune, which sounds good, but I mean, part of fortune just kind of means you kind of don't have any say. Not that you don't have any say, but it's kind of like, when you just kind of feel like you're at the mercy of fate, you're just kind of
mm.
buffeted by the winds of change, and it might be good, but it could also be bad. With part of fortune, I believe it's what befalls you. It's like you kind of don't have any. It's not something you did; it just happened to you, sort of thing,
Yeah, that's
which is
right.
a little bit
Exactly.
worrying, considering that's the house. It's conjunct the planet Mercury, which is ruling the sixth house of illness and also the third house of communications.
It's very obscuring, that, and that's exactly right with that combustion. Like, you know, whatever that Mercury represents is under control and, you know, overshadowed by the powers that be, which are represented by the sun. So the authorities are in control of that Mercury. That Mercury is not strong. And because it actually rules the military and military services and navy and public health. So it makes sense because, you know, the authorities are doing all this crazy spending right now. Like I saw, it was America has arranged with Australia to buy nuclear submarines to the value of $368 billion. And they will be stored in Australia, but like I think they'll be under control by America.
Yeah, this is the AUKUS, like Australia, UK, and US. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. And the other day they just bought like a number of missiles, like $1 billion worth of missiles.
Yeah, that's why do we, yeah, I'm not even going to get into that, but yeah.
But why do we need them? Well,
Yeah,
we're not going to
exactly.
know because we're in the, like, there's so
Mm,
much secrecy with this 12th house emphasis
yeah,
that we're not being kept in the loop.
yeah. Well, it's interesting too because like the 10th house in one of these charts represents either the king or the ruler. So this would be the prime minister or the party in power. So Saturn in the 11th is represents the current government, whereas the fourth house represents the opposition party. So that's going to be represented by that moon, which is in the 11th, but sneaking into the 12th. And it just makes me think too, perhaps there's going to be something coming out, secrets, hidden matters, coming in again with that, as Danielle said, it's going to conjunct that Neptune. So there's going to be some murkiness. It's like maybe very much he said, she said.
It really feels that way. I mean, hopefully the moon squaring Mars as an aspect in this chart may bring things out, you know, because the squares really do generate action and tension that really can propel things. But I mean, unfortunately, Neptune is right up again in the square there, just adding distortion and stuff to the mix. I think that Pluto, though, as the highest planet in the chart, really overhanging the chart, is a force to be reckoned with. I mean, that's in the house of the authorities, but I reckon that could be a lot of dark truths coming out, you know, a lot of like whistleblowers and people like connected, you know, it could be anything from fraud to, you know, sexual abuse, or, you know, all these plutonic subjects that are coming to, hopefully coming to light because of that 10th house emphasis. But it's probably a lot of a fight. They're probably fighting pretty hard to keep it buried as well.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, Pluto's often associated with transformation. In the 10th, I mean, this is possibly Australia's reputation on the world stage to a certain extent as well, I imagine. So are we undergoing some sort of transformation? It's really interesting. Pluto's there at 29 degrees Capricorn, 57 minutes. It's got 3 minutes, not literal minutes, but minutes until it goes into Aquarius. But it is going to duck back into Capricorn later this year, then come back into Aquarius and duck back. Because, yeah, I'm paying attention to that because it's very close to my ascendant. It's like, just go.
Just
go and don't come back.
No, I don't want to. I will have it on mine then. We have to, as soon as it leaves yours, it hits mine. So we get the, it's like passing the plutonic ball to each other.
Like a baton relay.
Your turn.
It beats you over the head.
Oh my gosh. You're still, you survived, so hopefully I will too.
Yeah, well, maybe some sort of maybe more accountability or something for politicians, because I mean there's been a lot of scandal. I mean, I suppose there always is in politics, but there's been a lot of things come to light. Maybe there will be a desire for more accountability. I would hope so, but we'll see. But it is very interesting that Pluto's right at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I do think if also the 10th ruler, Saturn, being a significator of those leaders in Pisces, it definitely has a slippery kind of energy. It doesn't feel like, you know, that type of authority figure is going to be the most authentic and honest with you. They're going to give you the Jupiterian rap of what sounds good, you know, like they're going to give you that, woo, you know, Jupiter and Aries answer of telling you what you want to hear.
Yeah. You know, the mutable sign, Saturn in Pisces, it can adapt to what it needs to keep that and maintain that power. So interesting.
Yeah.
Thinking too with the sixth house is also unions and I believe strikes. That doesn't bode well if we do have union strikes later in the year with that Mercury, which rules the sixth, under the beams like that, or not just under the beams, combust.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. And it's just it's a real downer, really, having that Mercury under the beams, because it's affecting all kinds of things as well, being a general indicator of trade in terms of like international trade as well as, you know, the whole telecom system, our internet. Like, I'm not sure if that's going to get affected. I'm hoping not. But when we see Mars doing its with the potential to corrupt the third house, which is all that stuff we're talking about there, we're getting a few little red flags there. But
well, particularly like you said, it is moving past that square to Neptune, so that's something. Maybe we are going to actually shore up that. That's a nice idea. I think I'm kind of, that's my Mercury in Pisces.
Yeah.
It wants it to get better. But yeah, that is a little bit concerning, seeing the malefic contrary to sect of this chart in the third of communications, when we've had all those breaches of information from particularly from the telcos. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this is going to be an ongoing area of concern with cyber hacking. Data and cyber is like one of the biggest industries growing, and especially with Pluto moving into Aquarius, any kind of hacking and AI fraud, that is on the cards, unfortunately. So we've got to just try and protect our security as much as we can as we move into this new age of craziness on the internet.
Yeah, well, I mean, not only do we have the malefic contributor sect in the third house of our IT and communications and all that, but it's ruled by that Mercury again, which is just in really bad shape.
Yeah, that Mercury doesn't provide any support at all. It's really, this sort of almost speaks to like a totalitarian kind of government, or like, is that the right word for someone who's all powerful, like overarching? You know, that sun really is calling the shots. Like, that sun is the lord of, or like I guess I say the lord of the year, but it's not, but it's a lord of the leader. It's like the leader is represented by that sun, and anything that Mercury does is really affected.
Well, there's two ways to look at this is my understanding. There's two ways to look at the leader of the country, whether that's a king, president, whatever. You've got the ruler of the 10th, so that's Saturn. And then you do have the sun, which is a king. Like, you know, if this was the UK chart we were looking at, you know, you've got a separate king to the leader of the country. But yeah, I don't know, that sun is in the 12th, so it could be behind the scenes dealings going on and all that. This could be, I don't know. I get what you're saying about totalitarian and that. I kind of see that Saturn for the current government. I get the impression, I haven't been watching the news a lot, I'm afraid, but that he's a little wishy-washy. I can kind of see Albanese kind of portrayed by that Saturn in Pisces from what I've seen. That Aries, that sun in Aries, I don't know what else. Well, see, that's also the ruler of the 5th. So
it is, yeah. I guess as a general indicator, it's more about the leader itself rather than the government as a whole, the sun. That's more
Well,
like the
that's the point.
individual.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
think that the more broader view of or the authorities or the government or um I think that would be more the ruler of the 10th house.
Yeah.
But
Well, actually, that
both would
makes
be
sense.
they're
Yeah.
both, I mean, the sun isn't strong there anyway. Admittedly, it's always going to be exalted because it's an Aries ingress,
Mhm.
but that sun is like just separated from Neptune and it's in a dark house, not looking at the ascendant. I don't think that's like it doesn't really help. It doesn't help the leader either. Like it
No.
doesn't really give them much ability to control matters. But I guess they've still got things. If you look at it like the sun was like a big umbrella, you know,
Mhm.
that
Mm.
leader is still like it's got that Mercury under that umbrella. So it's
Yeah.
able to control, you know, the language and the dialogue and
Yeah.
and the resources and all that media stuff.
Well, what is the 12th as well? We've got crime, criminality. I'm just thinking like traditionally in natal astrology, it's things like exile and okay, so we've got prisons, hospitals, mental health facilities, asylums, charities, crime, criminals, murder,
Mm.
spies and secret enemies, covert actions,
It's
conspiracy, all the good stuff,
it's
terrorism,
just so
exile.
dark. I mean, yeah, well, that's a lot.
But do you know what? And particularly, this is Australian politics. You know, we had 5 prime ministers in a short time a couple of years back. This could be maybe a bloodless coup or something, you know?
Yeah, it
Maybe,
could.
maybe he's kind of ousted, or that would explain Pluto up in the 10th too, maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. I wonder if, I mean, I was looking at the moon entering into the 12th, indicating the
Mm.
people and the sun in there and the emphasis there. And I was thinking, there could be some new things that are implemented around kind of further dividing people or separating people or isolating people. The 12th house is a house of isolation and loneliness and
Yeah,
mental health stuff, So I think as a global problem, like not just in Australia, but we've definitely got a mental health crisis on our hands.
huge mental health crisis. Yeah. Interesting with Neptune there and with that moon moving towards that Neptune, because I kind of think of Neptune as mental health issues and that. I could totally see that. Interesting. Mm. And with the
Yeah.
ruler of the six in there, combust. Yeah.
That ruler, yeah, the sixth ruler too is a concern. So there'll be a fair bit of silencing, I think, of medical matters and people who might want to speak out about certain things. But being aware, I guess awareness is the key, and being aware of what you're listening to, and like I guess trying to work against this Mars, or at least to be aware of the potential for things like slander or propaganda.
Mm.
Maybe things will come out with it. Maybe it just isn't the country's not able to control this. It's a bit of a wild card that Mars in Gemini. But
Yeah.
it's cadent. It's not really angular. Like it was interesting in the US chart. They've got a very angular Mars, so they're really ready for fighting. They're ready for war. In a way.
Yeah. But I
We're
mean,
not.
we've got 12th house. If I remember correctly, they've got a lot of 8th house, which is not good.
That's not good. No. Then I think I've got I was actually going to look at, if you're open to it, bring up
Yeah.
Anthony Albanese's chart just quickly and to see if there's
Mm.
any kind of overlaps with him. Oh wow, that's interesting. Maybe we should do a couple of
Yeah. Let's have a look
wheels.
at a bi-wheel or something.
It looks like his son's not far from that Saturn.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So the chart on the left is the Aries Ingress, and the chart on the right is Anthony Albanese's natal chart. Wow, that moon, the moon of the people,
Mhm.
is actually applying to the degree virtually of his Jupiter. So that probably indicates he's got a fair bit of like either a sway or like public approval.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking with, yeah, when you were saying to Jupiter. Actually, can you do it as
As a Bible.
a
Yeah, I can.
bi-wheel? Yeah. Oh wow, South Node on that Pluto.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't think he's gonna last.
perhaps as that Pluto in Capricorn wraps up across the end of the year, and then we enter into 2024, he'll be out. He'll be ousted.
But then it goes back into Capricorn and he comes back and then it goes back into
Oh, it's a
Aquarius.
while, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's doing this to and fro. It doesn't it fully go in by, it's not till 2025, is it?
20, yeah, not until November, 19th of November 2024 that it
Oh, the
actually
end.
leaves for good. Yeah.
That's quite a
Yeah.
long time. I mean, I'm not in a rush to have it on my ascendant.
Yeah. So his nodes are over that Pluto. That's interesting.
It makes sense. He's the one delivering or kind of in control of this, but he, in a way, this suggests that he's not in control of it, and he's sort of, the only way to handle this for him is to surrender with that south node right on Pluto, I would say.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm just looking at his natal chart. He's got Sun opposite Pluto.
Wow.
I wouldn't have called that.
That's a partile opposition as well. That's exact, virtually within minutes.
Damn.
So yeah, interesting. What else have we got?
So he's got Venus up there on Pluto of the country.
To schmooze, he could schmooze a bit with that Venus, even though it's a Capricorn Venus, like schmoozing through his ability to kind of look like he knows what he's talking about with that Capricorn Saturnian ruled Venus, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
He's got a good looking Saturn as well. So that Saturn in Aquarius is going to really be able to back up that Venus in Capricorn that's relying on that. Where's Mercury's with Saturn, which is interesting, because I was thinking, oh, is there a bit of a gift to the gab? I mean, I know that Saturn and Mercury can be a bit, you know, shut down sometimes, but because Mercury's actually got, I think it's got triplicity in Aquarius, hasn't it? And it's co-present with Saturn or conjunct with Saturn.
Yeah, for a night
Yeah,
chart. When's he born? What time?
he's born.
Oh,
He
in
is
the
born.
morning.
Oh, in the morning. So yeah, he doesn't. It's got some other dignity though. I'm pretty confident.
Saturn for a day chart for yeah. Mercury is the
Is
night.
the night chart triplicity ruler. Well, I feel like Mercury in Aquarius, they still seem to do quite well. And it's separating from Saturn, so it's not applying, which is a little bit easier for him. But
Jupiter and Pisces. Nice.
yeah, and that's on that Neptune. So it's sort of like, I do see him being part of this sort of, let's just smooth it over. Like, let's just try and make this sound digestible, you know, because it's both of his benefics are on like Pluto, well, one's on Pluto and one's on Neptune.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
And they're
Yeah.
sextile.
Yeah, I just wonder how long he'll be in power with Pluto in the 10th of the Aries Ingress, and then, like you said, the sun was in the 12th, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so he's got a Gemini moon.
Yeah.
His moon's actually square to Saturn, which is the ruler of the 10th house in the Aries Ingress chart. So that in a sense is interesting too. Like he's kind of at odds with this position of like, that would indicate like a feeling of being uncomfortable with the power, wouldn't it, in the next year? Maybe the financial decisions he has to make because his moon lands in the second house.
Yeah, I mean, he's got all that Capricorn and Aquarius, so you would think he's quite stern in that. But I mean, he's a Pisces sun, and I mean, I know we're so much more than the Pisces. I don't know. He just, like I said, I don't watch the news much. I just don't get a strong man vibe from him. Authoritarian. It's interesting you were talking about totalitarian before, and that, you know, I think of him, I don't think of him like that at all.
No, and he's got all that, like both of his luminaries are in mutable signs, so he's kind of got more of a like wishy-washy or kind of open to change and variety sort of energy. But what I guess what the public's seeing though is they're seeing this mega chunk of Saturn right up here. So I mean, maybe they will, maybe he can continue on with that sort of approach. I mean, yeah, I'm not sure. His ascendant is on Uranus as well, which
Mm,
is a bit of a wild card.
mm,
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I think that I can see how he definitely has a role to play in this next 12 months.
mm.
But it does look a bit like it could topple over with that south node right on Pluto.
Yeah, that doesn't look healthy, does it?
No, but and you
And
know
I
what?
mean,
That Venus is him as well because it's his ascendant ruler. So that Venus in
yeah,
Capricorn. Um, Now Venus in Cap has got triplicity as well.
Venus
So
in, yes, it does for a day chart. Yes.
so that's actually not a it's got some essential dignity. So maybe there's enough public
Trying to save
approval.
him. But you know
Mm.
what it might be? He might actually need to, and he might not be ousted. He might step down for, say, um, health reasons or something. Maybe he needs to kind of, like, I can see exile, and I'm kind of thinking, see, the sun rules the fifth, which is diplomats and ambassadors. Maybe he will step down and become a, I know it sounds like a big step down, but maybe that's something that he would prefer. But
Mm.
that south node, that's falls.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And it's
Like
up in the 10th
literal.
house. I don't think he's going to serve out his full term and then, either lose an election and then or resign. I think, yeah, I think, and quite possibly within 3 months, because this chart, it's a cardinal ascendant. It's only for 3 months.
Yes. So we've got a cast again in
Cancer.
the Cancer Ingress. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm almost curious to look at his solar return for the next 12 months, but I
Yeah.
could be pushing the
Yeah,
boat
go
out too
on.
far. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Well, what the hell, why not?
Let's do it. Okay.
But yeah, I just don't think that looks good for him. But maybe he steps down and becomes an ambassador or something to the US or wherever he
Sounds
wants.
about right, given the current circumstances.
And like the 12th house, the house of exile, it wouldn't necessarily be an exile, but I mean, if you're ambassador of another country, you're literally far from home.
Indeed. So he's got a Taurus rising natally,
Mhm.
and in the solar he's got Capricorn on the ascendant. So what is that? That's going to be that's the ninth house rising. Is that correct? He's got ninth house matters rising. That'd be international affairs?
Yeah, yeah. How old is
Two,
he?
three, eight. Wait, let me just do this as a bi-wheel.
So
Okay.
he's turning 60 this year. When's his birthday? 2nd of March.
So he's
Interesting.
just entered a fresh solar return now.
So he's in a Venus ruled year, and Venus is
Mm.
on that Pluto, isn't it? Or Pluto's
Yes,
on his
yes.
Venus.
Uh-huh.
What does Venus rule? The first and the sixth. Interesting.
Yes. And I think because we've got that Venus retrograde coming up toward the end of what is it, July, August, we've got Venus retrograde in Leo. That's going to be
Yeah.
at a square to his fourth house. So that is really interesting too. Maybe he'll have family reasons to actually stop or to withdraw from politics or something like that.
Well, he's just turned 60. So he's in a first house annual perfection. So Venus is Lord of the Year, and there it is in his natal 12th.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
That
Uranus
doesn't look
very
good.
close to the ascendant. Yeah.
Venus
Uh,
is in her detriment in Aries as well, so
mm,
not strong this year. Definitely lost a lot of appeal.
what do you reckon with Jupiter conjunct the Lord of the Year? Is that going to just make matters worse with her? They're still benefics, but yeah, they're not.
Jupiter's compromised because of its rulership of the eighth house. It seems to be afflicted because of that.
Interesting.
Maybe it indicates secret deals with using other countries' money though, because of the eighth house emphasis in the 12th house of secrets.
So the
Yeah.
ascendant of the solar return is Capricorn. So Saturn's the lord of the solar return, and it's
Mm.
sitting on his MC along with Mercury.
Which is a repetition of the natal chart, right? Because he's got Mercury Saturn conjunction. So we're seeing that twice, which is always something to highlight.
Yeah. Is he gonna say something a little bit too yeah, is there going to be some huge thing he says that's like not good?
I feel
I
like because he's in his own domicile, I feel like he's probably going to stick to the
can't be too
rules.
bad.
Mm. But he has got, like, I did get it correct when I calculated it in my brain before. The ascendant of the solar is rising in the ninth. So that's bringing
Yeah.
up matters of foreign affairs. That's bringing up foreign people, education. Um, I don't know, higher understanding. Maybe he's going to have some kind of religious,
Well, yeah, that's
religious.
an interesting concept too. Well,
Is
what
he
else?
religious?
I don't know. I know what's his name?
The last
He
one,
was
he
the
was
fitness
religious.
one.
Yeah, I know. I know. We're so into politics, aren't we?
Scotty from marketing. um, I can't think of his, yeah. Well, the ninth house in Mundane is the law courts, judges, and the justice system, international law, morality, religious institutions and the clergy, cults,
Cults.
university, science, higher education, inventions, publishing and broadcasting, wireless and international communications, shipping, sea and air traffic, foreigners and foreign relations.
Mm. I think this describes what he's doing, and all these dialogues with the US and all these deals, and I think a lot of that's going to be maybe more visible though than it was. It's hard. We're seeing some kind of like some things in this chart that are different to the solar because there's a fair bit of secrecy in that, but we do see Venus ruling his year in the 12th house here with Jupiter.
Yeah.
So both benefics are kind of compromised by their placement in there.
Yeah, it's in the fourth, like that Venus, Jupiter's in the fourth house of the solar return. So, yeah, something may be going on, like you said, in the home. Might not even necessarily be him, maybe somebody's sick or not well, or.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, you got your women there. I don't know.
The moon is interesting too. There's a very strong moon in the solar return on the descendant, like
Descendant.
really close.
Hmm.
I mean, that's sort of interesting.
Well, when I was just talking about that Venus Jupiter, I'm thinking, are we having more kids? Is there
Yeah.
another woman on the scene? I don't know.
Yeah, that could be interesting. We were talking about slander and things coming out in the media. Maybe he'll get, maybe there'll be some kind of public. I mean, the moon's in domicile. It's quite a strong moon, but it's going through his third house.
Mm.
Is it aspecting any malefics or anything? Like, is it doing anything with anyone that we should be concerned about? What's Mars? Mars is in aversion. We can't see. No problem. And Saturn's fine.
Saturn, yeah, it'd be a trine if you're going to take it into Pisces.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it's a very wide one. It's not within 3 degrees.
Yeah. I wonder about that.
Mind
Oh,
you,
yeah.
but look at this. That moon in the solar return is sextile his Uranus in the 5th house of his natal.
Oh, well, that could definitely provoke some kind of surprise in terms of sexual misendeavors or something like that.
Oh, it could literally be just
A new baby.
there's a menopause baby.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, the nodal axis is straddling the first and seventh houses.
Yeah.
He's got Uranus on the ascendant. It sort of doesn't feel like he's going to be sticking around. Like the angularity of Pluto.
Yeah, well, the
Well, it's
eclipse
not
is
actually
here.
angular, but
We're
it's
finishing off that first seventh, but it's moving into his 6th and 12th. So yeah. What do
yeah.
we've an eclipse on the 20th of April at 29 Aries.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
that's going to be interesting because that'll be squaring the degree of the Pluto in the Aries Ingress,
mm,
won't it? That's really interesting. Maybe that will be important to the story of the year for Australia and for everywhere because it's going to, like you said, it's across the board with the degrees of these planets.
well, this and then the lunar eclipse on the 5th of May is at 14 Scorpio, which is
Mm.
close to his descendant. Not super close, but close.
14 Scorpio. Yeah, it is, and it's on his natal Neptune.
Oh, yeah.
So we're seeing a few connections to his Neptune in these charts. So I would be doubting his. I mean, I would be doubting his honesty. Maybe he's got the best, high hopes for a new world or whatever. But I'm not really feeling that. Feeling
Yeah,
that.
I really didn't like that south node of his. I think it was on, there was a south node Pluto thing. I think his south node was on the Pluto of the Aries Ingress, wasn't it? Yeah.
It is, yeah, it is right. Well, we can see it in the solar return because Pluto's so
Mhm.
slow. Yeah. Yeah, so we haven't got an angular Pluto. It's the whole sign houses have sort of distorted the angularity, but the MC is here, so we've got a very angular Saturn, which that's quite intense and severe. It's not exactly Saturn Mercury conjunctions too can speak to dishonesty, traditionally speaking. It's interesting. Okay, so how about maybe I should get out of this and go back to our
Plus, that
original.
Saturn's at 29 degrees, so it's just about done.
Yeah, that's our verdict.
Anaretic degree, yeah.
We've got a bit of anaretic degree going on, and it's sort of like the feeling is,
Well, I wonder, even like you could look at that Pluto and ask, are we going to become a republic?
wow.
I think we've got much more important things. Well, that's my personal opinion, than becoming a republic at the moment. But that could certainly be something that's represented by Pluto in the 10th.
Well, you could have cracked the code because, if we look at the sun as the monarch and we look at that as, the
Interesting.
monarch is in the 12th, it's weak, and then we look at the government, the Australian government, as that Saturn in a good house,
Mm.
admittedly not that strong by essential dignity, but that could definitely be a massive transformation for the country in the 10th house there. Yeah.
And yeah, interesting.
Wow. I wonder if there's anything else. I did make a few notes, but I just see if there's anything else to kind of cover. Because a lot of this is sort of predictive and we have to just wait and see. And it's not going to be valid for the whole year. So
Well, I think that's exciting. We don't have to give it a whole year to manifest. We can have a look at in the Cancer Ingress and see if we got anything right. And it is so hard because there's so many different significations for the houses and the planets. And sometimes you look back and you go, that's what that meant, not this.
Yes. Yeah, there's so many things that could be. But I think with that really strong stellium in the 12th, there is likely to be a challenging period with, things such as surveillance really. I mean, I was listening to something, the spend of surveillance is something ridiculous. It was in the billions of dollars.
Oh, wow.
Secret societies or what else have I got? Like the prison system, potential terrorism or, so-called terror attacks, maybe done with I mean, I don't know how these things, it's just really problematic. Yeah, it's got quite a murky feel. What can we say that's positive? I mean, I guess if you look at the country as a whole, Venus and Jupiter are both in the first house.
I think that bodes well for finances. Maybe there is some unexpected resource that we can profit from as a country, as a whole. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, some exciting some new technology or something like that.
I really quite like that Venus with the North Node. I know a lot of people see North Node and just say the nodes are just problematic anyway, but Venus is domiciled. I think she's even in her own bounds in that degree. She is sextiling? Yeah, sextiling that Saturn.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll end up with a female leader. I don't know. Or maybe a female deputy leader.
Yeah, I think with Venus ruling the 7th house, in this chart is like it's the strongest planet in the chart. And so I think that, international politics are going to dominate in the media in this period. Like it's going to be all about our relationships with this person and that person, or our relationships with this country and that country. I think that's going to be very, very obvious because it's, you know, Venus is in an angular house. It's getting amplified because of that North Node conjunction as well. Yeah. So
yeah, I think that's kind of the best, like you said, it's the best position there.
whether that's good for us though, because I did read in the news yesterday, it said, yeah, we're buying more than 200 Tomahawk cruise missiles from the US at the cost of 1 billion. And the quotation from the Aussie, I don't know, representative was, it's vital to the US national interest to assist our ally in developing a strong and ready self-defense capacity. So, I mean, we've got Pluto up there, which, you know, can be connected to kind of pretty full-on events like wars and things that really permanently change the fabric of society. But I think the good news is that Mars, which is our prime mover for something like that, is cadent and not in an angular house.
Yeah. Just wondering too, with the debt that must, incorporate for the country, because what is the national debt? Is that the eighth, I believe?
Yeah, it should be the eighth house.
Yeah. So that's Mars in the third.
That could talk about maybe some deception around the figures or the numbers, like fudging the numbers a bit on how much we owe or who we owe it to. Maybe misinformation and interruptions to communication, transport, cybercrime and fraud, public attention. Going into the 12th house with the moon there could be like, you know, despondency in a large group of people, you know. So trying to like avoid the welfare state. I mean, I run a charity and we've seen a steady increase in people coming to our meal service every week.
Yeah.
Because it's just getting harder to afford food and bills and everything for people.
Yeah. Well, what about the weather? See, that moon also represents like the fourth, which includes weather, farms, crops, real estate, national traditions and all that. But yeah, the weather, that's interesting that it starts in the 11th, which is kind of like a sunny house. I mean, I know it's Jupiter that's traditionally, but it's a good house. And like you said, that moon slipping into the 12th.
Yeah.
Interesting that it's coming up with Neptune again. I wonder if we're going to get a lot more rain.
100%. I'm a little bit like leaning toward that too. It's like the potential for problems with the water supply or flooding, maybe the cleanliness of water as well. I was thinking about that with Saturn in Pisces, like maybe there's some issue with that. But yeah, like you said about weather, I think Moon Neptune conjunction is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
Being disposited by Jupiter, which tends to inflate everything. We saw when we had the floods in the northern rivers in Australia last year, when I got flooded, we had a Sun Jupiter Neptune conjunction at that time. And the moon was in Aquarius actually, which is the water bearer, so that was kind of bringing in a bit of water too. But yeah, I was just looking at this and thinking the moon is at square to Mars in this chart. So in a sense, the masses or the population is at odds with the country. You know, they're not on the same page. Yeah. So maybe there'll be a revolution. Maybe we need one. Maybe we need some kind of revolution, you know. I don't know. This is probably more long-term than the next 3 months, though. But
well, you'd think so, wouldn't you?
These charts can be used, though, can't they, multiple times? So we might look back at ingresses from a long time ago and start looking at the themes and how they develop over
absolutely
time.
Fascinating. When me and Donna, we did a podcast on assassinations of US presidents and also big events of like, you know, Pearl Harbor, the Alamo, different things like that. And sometimes we looked at the Aries Ingress for that year, and quite often it was quite telling as well. Absolutely fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, all these charts don't operate in isolation. Like when we look at Albanese's chart, or we look at, you know, we could look at all kinds of, I mean, actually, a good thing we could do perhaps is to just quickly look at the ingress in China.
Mm. Oh, wow.
Like they're ready to go. Check it out. Look at that stellium in the first house, and Mars is angular.
Damn.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a lot, isn't it?
yeah.
Mars ruling their second house of resources, and it's, oh, okay, in their fourth. So what are they going to, because that's also mines and resources. Maybe they're going to not need Australian resources as much, like we export a lot of our natural resources. I don't know.
I think that's on point. From I was speaking to someone who I know that is right up with international politics and things, and he
Mhm.
said that yeah, a lot of China, like China has learned from foreign interests how to build machinery and infrastructure
Mhm.
and things, and now they don't really need us. They're excelling beyond us. So
Yeah.
yeah, and they've got that really strong Venus in the second house,
Yeah.
as I guess we don't, but it's ruling our second house. So we've probably been benefiting from America more than them. Oh, I
Yeah.
guess
I mean,
we're benefiting from them, but
and if you look at that Saturn in the 12th, it's close enough to its first house. So
right, wow.
Pluto in the 12th behind the scenes, transformation happening there. Interesting.
Mm,
But yeah, that's just crazy. Have you got the
yeah,
US?
I do. Yeah, I've got. Here we are.
Okay, so
Okay.
it's
Yes,
Jupiter and Mercury. But see that Mercury, well, that sun's also in the eighth, really, isn't it?
it is. Yeah, it's in the eighth as well.
And that Mercury's not good. Ruled by Mars. Where's Mars in the 10th? Oh, I
That's
don't like that.
intense. I think that's scary. Like both China and America have got these very active Marses.
Yeah, I think Biden's either going to step down or maybe he'll pass or something, perhaps.
Mm.
With the sun, the ruler, plus the ruler of the 10th, which is the leader of the country,
He
which is
might
Dimitri.
die.
Yeah.
He might
Either
cark it.
that or step down. Be the eighth house is also national mourning. So
Mm. It's interesting because the ruler of the 10th, as well as the solar component, which is the leader, are both in the eighth house, which is
yeah.
despair and grief, national loss,
Mm,
national debt.
mm.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, we've got another. Oh, this is a mutable chart, so this one needs to be cast in 6 months.
Yeah.
That's
So
cool.
6 months. Yeah. What was China? What was the ascendant on that? That was,
I think it was. It's mutable also.
oh, okay. So 6 months for China as well. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. What a loaded first house. So China's got a lot going on in their
Mm,
country.
yeah,
There's
that's a
a lot.
lot.
There's a lot.
And look at the seventh house for their, other nations. It's Mercury, which is just being squashed. It doesn't bode well for the rest of, yeah,
Totally. Yeah, they're in their pocket. Hey,
and international disputes and that in the seventh. So, mm,
it indicates that the leadership there and the people are a lot more competent and able to actually do something. That angularity gives them the capacity to kind of act more, whereas our luminaries are in the 12th house in our
mm,
chart.
yeah,
You just see all of this 12th house emphasis. So yeah, a little bit of a interesting time. But the good news is we've only got 3 months and we can cast another one.
exactly, exactly.
And I briefly looked at the other one, and do you know what? It actually has an Aries rising as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So then we
So
go
we're going to cast
into
another one.
for Libra. Oh my.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of Chinese students coming to Australia. I think that started to increase because I was thinking about this Jupiter, which rules the ninth.
Oh, that would make sense.
Um, and for like foreign travel is sort of on the cards again. A lot like people are going
Yeah.
abroad and all that.
Well,
So
this is it. So many people, it's like and then you kind of got to get your passport renewed, because it's probably run out, and it's taking so much longer, to get anything done. And yeah.
Yeah. But I guess we'd prefer to have these fortune planets in the first house, but we can make something of them as a country, hopefully,
Yeah.
and perhaps that adds some degree of integrity to the country as a whole, maybe the essence of what Australia means or whatever. I mean, I guess it's
Yeah, hopefully.
stolen land anyway, but reconciliation would be nice. I just don't see that happening in terms of our Indigenous people or anything based on this chart. I'd like to think so.
Where would you look for that, I wonder?
I mean, the roots of the chart, perhaps like the fourth house cusp, like that moon.
Like, so like the ruler of the fourth and the ruler of, right, well, the ruler of the fourth is the people.
Yeah, but it's the origin, isn't it, of what this land means.
But what I mean is, in like the moon represents the people of the country. So does well, I suppose first and fourth house rulers in a nice aspect together. Well,
yeah.
Actually, the moon is moving up to trine that Mars. It's got to go through Neptune first, though.
It's going to square it. I think it's going to square it, unfortunately.
Oh, no, you're quite right. It is going to square it.
I know. I'm trying. I wish it wasn't, though. I was like, oh. I guess the thing about a lot of this is that eventually, the dark comes to light. A lot of this secrecy and having such a big Pluto, like a potent sign on the 10th, perhaps will be enough to really just crack the code. I mean, I don't know. I wonder what it will be.
Yeah, well, like you say, that Pluto, I'd like to see the sun and the moon in much more visible houses for something like that, though, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, the most superior planets in this chart are two rather hectic planets like Saturn and Pluto. So, I mean, maybe because Saturn's in a good house, it might make some good decisions just based on that. But it is also in aspect to a sextile with Venus. So maybe it'll spend the majority of its time kind of schmoozing with international countries and trying to make money rather than actually, maybe rather than traumatizing the people anyway. Maybe the people are still, maybe this moon just indicates people are still kind of into recovery mode, that there's still a lot of healing necessary to be done after the last period of time. But it's just because it's just entering the 12th. Like, I'd like to see that on its way out rather than on its way in.
Yeah, that is a little bit worrying. And that could be because I know it's not necessarily mundane, but in natal, like the 12th can be like hidden illnesses, which can be like anxiety and mental health issues.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of stressed people.
Yeah.
Could be also with that moon moving towards Neptune and it's in the house of our undoing, maybe an increase in drug problems.
Yeah, that definitely does coincide with the 12th house, especially, and the Neptune. Yeah, I do see that. I don't know. Maybe there'll be some ability for a breakthrough. That square is very dynamic. Well,
it's then is it a sextile to that Uranus in the second? Maybe we're going to psychedelics. Maybe that's the secret resource.
Yeah, well, that is going boom now, because a lot of these are now kind of scheduled and we're able to use them, I think, aren't we? We've got some new legislation that's come in around that. That could actually be the ninth house ruler in the first house. I often think about the ninth house as psychedelics.
Oh, okay.
Because it's about sort of journeys,
expanding your horizon, sort of thing.
Yeah.
The third is like what we know, what's around us, and the ninth is expanding our boundaries.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you know, also because Saturn's ruling the 10th and it's in the 11th house of legislation, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and whack a whole bunch more rules and regulations onto psychedelics. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah. Wow. I think that's a lot.
Mm.
Anything else that's
I think we've made a lot of predictions.
yeah, we really have. Oh my goodness.
It'll be interesting to see how many come to pass.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't come for me, fans of Albanese. I'm not saying he's having an affair or anything. I'm just looking at this as, oh, could this possibly be this?
Next
I'm
minute, there's a love
pretty,
child.
yeah, I'm pretty apolitical, but yeah, I'd just be interested to see what actually pops up. And as I say, even if you kind of don't get it right, sometimes it's so close, it's like, oh, of course it's this, you know. But
Something of
sometimes they
personal
just
choice.
blindside you. It's just interesting to come back and look at it afterwards and go, ah, that's what that meant.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Oh, this has been really fun.
Mhm. Well, thank you for inviting me. I thoroughly enjoyed myself too.
Yeah, thank you, Lynda. It's always great to look at charts with you. We could do it for hours. I feel like we should give people a break so that they can have a rest. We might carry on.
Mm,
I'll speak to you. We'll speak again soon.
very soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Ciao.